rooms. Doctors have waiting rooms, dentists have waiting rooms, schools have waiting rooms, car repair places have waiting rooms. And what do waiting rooms have in them? What kinds of things are in waiting rooms? Magazines, chairs, TV. Yep, that's about it. A coffee machine sometimes. I was in a waiting room a little over a week ago. One of our cars was getting fixed and I was waiting there. And in this waiting room, there were several other people who were waiting also. It was interesting to watch them. One person was waiting in the room, talking on their phone. Another person was watching the television and had actually turned it up very loudly. Another person was trying to read a book. And another person was trying to entertain their small child, enough to keep them entertained, but not too entertained. And I was typing on my computer. I'm not sure if any of us were really waiting well, but we were all waiting. So here are a few pictures of some people who are waiting. And I wonder, which one do you identify with? Which one is you when you're waiting? You know, are you like pulling your hair out? I'm so frustrated, I would like to wait. Are you just bored because it's taken a long time? Are you trying to get everything done? Because once it comes or once it happens, you got to have everything ready. I mean, which one do you identify with? We're all waiting for something. I think we're all waiting for either that thing to be over. Maybe we're waiting for breaks from school because we finally want vacation. Maybe we're waiting for that vacation for our family or for ourselves. We want to go on vacation. Maybe we're waiting for that person to stop doing what they're doing because we're tired of it. Maybe we're waiting for that next season because we know that next season is going to be so good. Maybe we can't wait because that thing ahead is so exciting. Maybe we're waiting for that new thing that we're getting that we can't wait for. There's so many things to wait. And the question comes up, when we're waiting for things, is, well, how do we wait? And what do we do when we wait? And what do we do in the meantime? I mean, I don't like meantime. I don't like that period when we're waiting, that period where it's not here yet and I know it's coming. That meantime is a tough time. So what do we do when we wait? Well, it's a good thing. Jesus had some things to say about waiting, quite a bit in fact. He was talking to the disciples about waiting in this parable that we're going to look at and that we've already started looking at. And he had already been talking with them about waiting for quite a while. They were nearly at the end of Jesus' life and Jesus' time on earth, and Jesus was talking about the fact that they're going to be waiting for when God comes back. And the way that Jesus was talking about it was so exciting and with such anticipation, and there would be such an amazing thing, and it would be such a grand thing and a big thing, and it seemed like Jesus was saying, it's coming any moment. So they pretty much thought, it's a matter of days. I mean, this is coming now. And so they're thinking, I'm excited for God to move. I'm excited for God to work. I'm excited for this new time when God's going to end the world as we know it and bring this new world that God's going to bring. When, there's ultimate peace and we're just not at peace now. So I'm excited about that. They were looking forward to this grand new time that God was going to bring. And Jesus is saying, it's not yet. You don't know how long it's going to be. It may be a while, but just wait. And then he says, but while you're waiting, in the meantime, and he gives this parable. And whenever Jesus tells a parable, it's a signal probably for us to say, oh, he wants to teach something extra important. Because it's not just something he can state, it's something he has to show us or describe to us. And so these parables seem to compare how we are viewing whatever it is and how God usually views whatever it is. And hopefully Jesus, I think, wants us to move from our view a little closer to God's view. And so he tells the story. And in this story, he tells about something related to waiting. It's a longer story, so we're actually going to take it section by section. If you brought your Bible, you can open up to Matthew 25. It's also in your bulletin or on the screen. You'll also notice that there's a couple different names for the amount that the master gives to the servants. We already saw this in the children's message. So you'll see a couple different names, and I'll explain why in just a second, why that's there. So here's Jesus' parable. Again, here's what the kingdom of heaven will be like. A man was going on a journey. He sent for his slaves and put them in charge of his money. He gave 5 talents to one, he gave 2 talents to another, and he gave 1 talent to the third. The man gave each slave the amount of money he knew the slave could take care of. Then he went on his journey. The slave who had received 5 bags of gold, 5 talents, went at once and put his money to work. He earned 5 bags more. The one with the 2 bags of gold, or 2 talents, earned 2 more. But the man who had received 1 bag went and dug a hole in the ground. He hid his master's money in it, or he hid it under his hat, like John did. So let's get a little perspective here, just to understand this. The reason that talents and bags of gold are here is because traditionally, the versions that we read say talents, but we don't really talk about talents. That's not in our really vocabulary. So people have given a different description that's maybe more understandable to us. Bags of gold is one description that's used, or there's other amounts of money that are used. But all this to say, it's a particular amount of money. And it's helpful to at least understand generally what this is like. We looked at talents last week, but just as a refresher, or if you didn't see this, the amount that a talent is helpful to know. So we figured out that a talent is about 6,000 days of a wage that somebody earns. And we're talking about minimum wage, kind of day laborer sort of people. So if we do the math at $11 an hour for an 8-hour day, that's about $88 a day. If we multiply that out times 6,000 days of wage, we get about $528,000. Or we get about 16 plus years of pay. That was 1 talent. And we're talking about 5 talents and 2 talents and 1 talent. So if we do the math there, then we're talking about 90 plus years, $2.5 million, or 32 plus years and just over $1 million. So this is kind of the amount of money. The specific dollars, the specific years aren't important. The point is that Jesus is making, is this valuable? I mean, is this amount that the master is giving, is this something valuable and worth it, or is this just change? It's valuable, right? Okay, so this is important stuff. The master's handing over something that is very valuable and very important to these servants and entrusting to them. So let's see what they do. After a long time, the master of those slaves returned. He wanted to collect all the money they had earned. The man who had received 5 bags of gold brought the other 5. Master, he said, you trusted me with 5 bags of gold. See, I have earned 5 more. His master replied, you have done well, good and faithful slave. You have been faithful with a few things. I will put you in charge of many things. Come and share your master's happiness. The man with 2 bags of gold also came. Master, he said, you trusted me with 2 bags of gold. See, I have earned 2 more. His master replied, you have done well, good and faithful slave. You have been faithful with a few things. I will put you in charge of many things. Come and share your master's happiness. Okay, let's pause just for a minute. Let's think about the master and look into who this master is. The master did not tell the servants what to do with what he gave them. He gave this amount of money and then just left. He didn't tell them what to do. So what kind of expectations do we learn or do we figure out that the master had for what they do with the money? We can maybe infer some things from how the master reacts to the slaves when they present their earnings back to the master when the master returns. It seems that the master expects that they'll do something productive with their money, with what he gave them. Jesus describes that the master wanted to collect all the money that they had earned when he returned. So it seems that the master expected that there would be something more when the master returns. And so when the slaves give the money to the master responds negatively or positively? Positively, yeah. I mean, they give double what they give 100% more than what they received. So the master is happy, and the master says, well, come, share in my happiness. I mean, this is a good thing, right? They did the right thing. The master somehow expected that they would just know, I'm supposed to earn something more. I'm supposed to build on what you gave me. I'm supposed to do something productive with what you entrusted to me. And the master verifies, this is a good thing that you did. Now, normally, in the parables, the people in the parable are examples in some way or another to us. These first two servants seem to be pretty good examples, don't they? You know, they do the right thing. They get the master's praise. They get rewarded for what they do. Seems pretty good. The problem is, in most parables, it's not the first two that are the example for us. It's usually, like in a joke, it's usually the last one that's the punchline. Or the third one in the series is the one that we learn from. So what is it about the third servant as opposed to just the first two? For example, the Good Samaritan. Is it the first and second that teach us a lot? No, it's the third. What about the parable of the soils? We looked at that a little while ago. There's 4 kinds of soils. Soils 1, 2, and 3, they kind of do their thing, but in the fourth one, you get this plant that produces 60, 90, 100-fold, and we think, oh, that's what Jesus... I mean, it's the last one. So what is it about the last servant? Let's see. Then the man who had received 1 bag of gold came. Master, he said, I knew you were a hard man. You harvest where you have not planted. You gather crops where you have not scattered seed. So I was afraid. I went out and hid your gold in the ground. See, here is what belongs to you. His master replied, you evil, lazy slave. So you knew that I harvest where I have not planted? You knew that I gathered crops where I have not scattered seed? Well, then you should have put my money in the bank. When I returned, I would have received it back with interest. Then his master commanded the other slaves, take the bag of gold from him, give it to the one who has 10 bags. Everyone who has will be given more. They will have more than enough. And what about anyone who doesn't have? Even what they have will be taken away from them. Throw that worthless slave outside. There in the darkness, people will weep and grind their teeth. So how did the third servant do? Not so well.
Well, he didn't rip them off.
He didn't know he didn't rip them off. How did the third servant fare at the end of the parable? Not so good. He had everything taken from him. He ended up in a bad place. So is it a good idea to be like the third servant? Probably not. So what mistakes did the third servant make that we can learn from? What's Jesus teaching us about how to wait and what to do in the meantime? Well, mistake number 1 of servant number 3. He didn't really know his master. See, the thing that's bothered me about this parable is the whole reaction of the master to the third servant. Because we know in this parable the master has to be God. That's how the parables all work. The master or the landowner or the whoever is always God. So we kind of know that's God. We always know, like the kids talked about, that the servants are usually us. They're the ones who are kind of put to the test. We're the servants. So if the master is God and the master says this stuff, I mean, how does that square with the God we know? The God of compassion and peace and love and justice, but mercy, and all the things that the Bible describes God as. How could that God, insult the slave and throw him out and say that he's worthless and send him into the weeping and grinding, gnashing teeth? The only way that I know to figure that out is that the slave, the third slave, did not know his master. Because he describes who he thinks the master is, I think you are one who has sown where you did not scatter and reaped where you did not sow, or whatever the specific words are. But you're doing stuff that's incongruous with who you are. You're doing stuff that's not appropriate. You're cheating. You're stealing. He didn't know his master. And he even says, I was afraid of my master. I mean, God doesn't want us to be afraid of God. God wants us to be in a relationship with God. So there's something that's wrong in the relationship that the servant has with his master. He doesn't know his master. And that trickles down to what he does. He does things with his master's wealth that he knows the master does not want. There's something he didn't know about his master. And what if we were clear about knowing God? You know, what if Servant 3 teaches us you need to be so clear about knowing everything about your God? I mean, God's given us and equipped us with the availability of knowledge and understanding of who God is, but what if we knew God to the extent that, kind of like the first two servants did, they knew what the master expected and he didn't even say it. They knew how to act and respond to their master, even though they weren't told, but they just did it. Unlike the third servant that didn't, even though he should have known, which we'll learn in a second. You know, what if we can know that God is in charge? What if we can know who God is at all circumstances and all times, even when we're waiting? You know, because when we're waiting, that's usually when all of our understanding kind of goes out the window. And that's when we get worried and we get fearful and we get scared and anxious and frustrated. But what if we knew God so well, even in the times that we're waiting, that it helps us last? So mistake number 2 of servant number 3. He didn't really know his master's call. We just talked about the master's expectations. You know, the things that the master expected of the slaves when he gave them the money. He gives them the money, and he had this expectation that they would return on that investment. So the third servant, the first and second servant clearly knew this expectation. They understood it and they acted on it. The third servant doesn't really do anything with it. He doesn't get a return on his investment. But it's interesting that if we accept that the third servant didn't really understand and know his master, he still was responsible, according to the master, for earning something. I mean, the master says, why didn't you just at least invest the money and get something for it? Why didn't you at least do something? But the third servant doesn't do anything. It's like he didn't even understand his master's call. And what if we did understand our master? What if we did understand God's call? Even in the times that we're waiting. You know, and if God had a call for us, no matter what the season or, you know, a big picture kind of call, Scripture talks about it over and over. Jesus calls us to bear fruit, to produce good works, to be productive with the things that the Spirit gives us. The Apostle Paul writes about the need to use our gifts to edify and build up each other as we try to follow Jesus together. Jesus cast the vision for what if we were like this good, healthy soil that produces 60, 90, 100-fold. And then even when Jesus commissioned the disciples at the end, he talks about them going and making disciples of all nations and baptizing them and teaching them to live faithful lives. You know, God's call for us to be productive with the gifts that God gives us and the skills and abilities that God makes for us, that's a lifelong call. And what if even in the meantime, even in the waiting time, even the time when we're waiting for something to happen, what if we still know that that is God's call at all times? Sometimes it's harder to do that at other times. Sometimes we're more motivated to do that at other times. But what if we know that call at all times? Okay, mistake number 3 of servant number 3. He doesn't do what he's called to do. He knows the call. The others know the call. Somehow it's just written in here. They understand what it's supposed to be, but they don't do it. The third servant doesn't earn what he knows he's supposed to earn. So what happens to him because he doesn't earn this? Well, it's not good. He gets all of it taken away from him. It's given to somebody else. all his responsibility is taken away and he gets thrown out into a bad spot. So why so harsh? I mean, after all, if this master is God, why is God so harsh and even insulting toward this third servant? Why does he speak so harshly to him? Well, it's interesting because Jesus is talking to the disciples really at the very end. This is just a couple days before the Last Supper and the crucifixion. And he's talking to just the disciples at this point. And so the disciples have had 2.5 years or more of teaching with Jesus, of walking with Jesus, and learning about Jesus, and learning God's call from Jesus, and understanding who they're supposed to be in following Jesus. And what if Jesus is saying, by now you should know my expectations. You should know who I am. You should know what I hoped for you and what I long for you. And if you don't understand it, and you don't know Jesus by now, if you don't know your Father by now, if you don't understand this, you got to get to know it. Because if you don't get it, then this relationship with God is just not going to work out. Because the disciples are about at a point where they're going to start waiting. And they don't know how long they're going to wait. And they don't know what they're waiting for exactly. They just know they're waiting. And so Jesus is saying, in a harsh sort of way, you got to get this right. Because if you don't, then this relationship with God in this meantime, in this tough time, it's not going to work. It's not going to work well for you, and it's going to be tough. We have to do God's call. I mean, even when it's tough, even when we're waiting for things, to be responsible and productive and helpful and follow through with the things that God has given us. Not just money. It's not about money. It's about all the things that God gives us. What if even during those waiting times, even during the times of meantime, that we can be productive and useful with the things that God gives us, fulfilling the call that God gives us? And what if knowing God and knowing who God is could carry us through? See, I think Jesus intends this parable to be highly useful to every day in our lives and the things that we go through. And I wonder, how does this parable apply to the stuff we deal with? You know, surely we're waiting for things, but how does this parable actually fuel us to wait well and to wait faithfully? So I was thinking, well, what's one of the toughest situations that a lot of kids and students are dealing with? I was thinking about bullying, because it's all over the place. Everybody's talking about bullying. Lots of people are dealing with bullying. Lots of people are trying to figure out bullying. And I thought, could this parable address and help with bullying? Well, maybe it could. Because what if, when we're bullied, if a student is bullied and the parents are trying to figure out how to help the student through bullying, what if we knew God so well and we were so confident in who God made a student who's bullied to be, a beautiful child of God with gifts and skills and abilities, and they are exactly who God made them to be? And what if we can be so strong holding on to that we are a creation of God, every one of us, even a student who is hurt by somebody who is insulting them or hurting them or bullying them? What if we can be so strong hanging on to who God made us to be, that even the things that somebody might say about us, even the hurt that somebody might dish out toward us, it doesn't hurt us as much, because deep down we know exactly who we are. We can grab on, even in the hurt, even in the insults, even in whatever it feels like, we can say, no, I am a child of God. I am somebody who God made as beautiful from the very beginning. From before any of these people even knew me, I am this child of God. Could it be that knowing who God made me to be helps me to endure the things that people might say and the ways that people might treat me? It's possible. It's still going to hurt. It's still going to feel horrible. But what if deep down in our heart we can say, I know who God made me to be? And then, how do we respond in a situation like bullying? I mean, most of the time we want to just punch them in the face, or just say that's not right, or get them expelled, or do something to get them back. And that's not necessarily the call that Jesus gives us. What if we're somehow able to love somebody in the face of being bullied? What if we're able to to be able to show the love and the mercy of Jesus even when somebody's hurting us. I'm not sure there's anything that's harder than that, because that's not what we want to do. But what if we can? Because God's call to us is to share the love of Jesus with others no matter what happens. Now, that doesn't mean we need to accept them and enjoy them and be great friends with them, but how can we extend the love of Jesus with that person? What if we can know God's call strong enough that we can do God's call even in something that hurts us? And of course, bullying isn't the only example. We go through issues and problems and hurts and challenges all the time. And what if we're able to hang on most strongly to who God made you and me to be as beloved children of God, no matter what somebody else might do to us or what somebody else might say to us? It's tough to wait, but Jesus wants us to be able to wait well. Would you pray with me?